Thank you for joining us today for this Wednesday webinar where we are going to cover objectives. We'll talk about the relationship between course and module objectives and accreditation standards. And just to get us started, I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about. In order for objectives to be different than goals, they need to be measurable, specific, and observable, because goals are more of an overarching idea of what you want to accomplish, and objectives get more specific. And then we have the aspect of outcomes. So oftentimes you will hear objectives and outcomes being used interchangeably, and in Quality Matters language, in the Quality Matters rubric, they recognize them as the same thing basically. And so whether you choose to say objectives or outcomes, that is up to you. One thing to keep in mind is that objectives should focus on what the learner will be able to do and not on what the instructor will do or what they will teach. We also have a recording in our YouTube library on our YouTube channel that instructs you on how to write measurable objectives and outcomes. And so you can check that out if you go to our YouTube channel, and we'll discuss more about that later. Next, we're going to listen to Mark as he goes over what module objectives are.
Thank you, Kim. Module level objectives. Well, we'll first let us define a module as a section of your course. And a module could be a particular week or a topic. So module level objectives are specific, observable, or measurable statements. They outline the intended outcomes for a particular module, guiding both the student and the instructor. Module level objectives serve as a roadmap in describing the knowledge, skills, attributes, and habits that students are able to demonstrate at regular intervals throughout the course. And they contribute to the overall structure and coherence of a curriculum by aligning with the broader course level objectives. And we'll talk about course level objectives a little bit later. Let's talk about module objectives in terms of their alignment to the various course elements within a module. They align with learning activities, which provide practice for the assessment. They serve as a basis for developing assessments, which are ways of confirming learner progress and achievement. And they integrate with the instructional materials to provide supportive information and resources that students need to be successful in completing the activities and assessments. So your module level objectives play a crucial role in maintaining coherence in curriculum design across a course by connecting activities, assessments, and instructional materials, and giving students a seamless and purposeful educational experience. Next, we'll talk about their relationship to course level objectives. And so the relationship between module level objectives to the broader course level objectives ensures a cohesive alignment throughout the course. This facilitates a progressive development of skills and knowledge by allowing students to build a strong foundation before advancing to the more complex concepts. And the relationship between the module level objectives and course level objectives maintains consistency in assessments, ensuring that evaluations, both at the module and the course level, meet the specific learning objectives. And finally, this relationship creates a holistic educational experience which fosters a comprehensive understanding of the subject matter and reinforcing the interconnectedness of different concepts within the curriculum. So up next, Ryan will go deeper into course level objectives.
Great, thanks, Mark. So at the course level, we also have course level objectives. And these describe the actions and habits that students should be able to demonstrate at the end of the course. So again, that's sort of the knowledge and skills and abilities that you as the instructor can, or anyone else, can perceive externally to the student. And ideally, as I was saying, these are written to be measurable and externally perceptible. Who creates these? Who actually writes these course objectives? Usually they're written at the department or the program level, and often they're written by professors for their own courses. If you're in a scenario where you do not have the capacity to change the course objectives that have been given to you for your course, you might be able to make them, ideally you will make them more measurable and written in a way that's externally perceptible at the module level. So that's sort of a mediating, this is how we are seeing this in this module, and this is how it relates to the overall course objective. And how can you use different course objectives? The main thing that I think they help you do is communicate what your activities and your assessments lead to beyond the scope of your course. So whereas module level objectives help your students and you understand what the activities and assessments are doing within your course objectives help to point beyond the scope of your course. And what this also does is it means that when you get any questions from students about why are we doing this, you can give them an answer. You can let them know the program has decided that this course is one that prepares you for the next stage. This particular outcome is something that you'll use in these later activities throughout the department. Or if it's a gen ed course, you can say this activity, this information literacy activity prepares you to do other things that involve the use of information subsequent to this course. And also, as you're refining, whenever you feel like you want to improve some of your course elements, one thing you can do is think about how you might be able to orient that activity or that assessment to multiple of your course objectives. So instead of thinking just, what am I doing with this one particular thing? If you feel like a certain activity or certain assessment is a little bit lacking and it needs some freshening up, what you can do is think, okay, how can I align this not just to one aspect of my course, but to multiple? And other how-to suggestions, as I was saying, because course objectives mediate between your particular course, the module activities and assessments, and other things throughout your program, your department, throughout the university, one thing to do is to write the course objectives more abstractly in a way that transfers beyond the course. So instead of saying, as we will measure this by such and such, for instance, information literacy in this course is measured by how you are able to talk about financial arrangements and agreements with a credit union or a bank. Instead, you can write, that might be a module level thing where you're talking about precisely how you're measuring it or how it's applicable. At the course level, you can talk about how it would transfer beyond. And also make sure to refer to course objectives frequently in both your activities and your assessments. So you can do that by saying this particular activity aligns with this objective or this particular assessment in the prompt for it, and sort of this is what this quiz covers, or this is what this essay that you'll be writing is meant to let you demonstrate. You can refer back to the course objectives so that your students know what habits of mind, what knowledge, and what skills they are habitually gaining throughout the course. So next, Lisa's going to tell us more about accreditation standards.
So we've talked about module, which is at the finest point, and then we went up to course level objectives, and now we're going to go up to accreditation. So first, let's start about what are accreditation standards. Accreditation standards apply to a whole program, so they include standards that relate to facilities, faculty achievement, how the students apply to a program. The curriculum and instruction ones, which we'll be looking at and pertain more closely to those course and module outcomes, describe the knowledge, skills, and abilities expected of anyone who graduates from a program in that field. Who writes these? For us, we live in the United States, so they are US organizations. Other countries have specific national accreditation bodies who come together to describe the standards and skills that apply to a specific program. The people that are as part of these communities tend to call on faculty and professionals and other stakeholders to help inform what those standards are. Notice how we've talked about who creates them. So as we've gone through as an instructor, you generally have full reign over your module level objectives. At the course level, quite often there is input from your department, and because that needs to fit into the whole curriculum, which then is also informed by the accreditation standards if you're an accredited program. So this is kind of what that looks like. Again, faculty, you have control. A department or institutional committee has that. Your program might have program outcomes, and that's often connecting between your program and ISU outcomes. So notice how that they're kind of embedded and they lead up to the larger accreditation standards apply to all people who graduate from that program from anywhere in the United States or under that accrediting body. And when we get down to an institutional department level, it's like, what makes our program different from a program in another state? To give you an example, I was in a teacher education program and everything was related to social justice. That university was in Los Angeles, and so we served underserved communities, and so that was a primary focus. Teacher education in Idaho tends to focus more on rural education, quite the opposite. But the same thing, the standards would still apply. Being able to be a teacher in Idaho and being able to be a teacher in California is going to have the same basic set of standards. But the programs will be different based on the institution that you go to. So here's some examples. This is an example from the physician assistant studies. The accreditation standard is really broad, so this is where that abstraction comes from. The curriculum must include instruction on clinical medicine covering all organ systems. All right, pretty broad. So one of the course objectives is formulate a differential diagnosis for a patient presenting with chest pain based on history and physical exam findings. And actually, if you look at the other standards for physician assistant, they also talk about diagnosis, they also talk about history and physical exams. So this course actually pulls and connects to several of the accreditation standards. But it does definitely fit into one of the organ systems. One of the modules in that course is to differentiate between cardiac and non-cardiac types of chest pain. So we're looking at the cardiovascular system. Pain could come from other different places. So within the modules, we're going to look at that very specific pointed view, test students on being able to recognize what is going to lead towards cardiac and types of chest pain and which is going to lead to non-cardiac types of chest pain. So then it leads up to and gets to that accreditation standard. So another example here, and I'm going to use our Gen Ed standards, our Gen Ed objectives. General education objectives for ISU are created by the State Board of Education, and faculty across the state are involved in the updating and the revision of those. So in this case, there's not an accreditation body, but there is a statewide body that comes together to make the standards. One of the parts of the objective is to formulate and frame problems and analyze how others do so. That's pretty broad. This comes under the critical thinking objective of the Idaho General Education Objectives for Higher Ed. Program goal, now this is in the anthropology program, apply knowledge of anthropological methods, approaches, and modes of explanation to contemporary social issues. So here we're getting a little bit more specific. We're bringing in anthropology, we're bringing in contemporary social issues, but that all still provides opportunities for students to demonstrate their critical thinking ability in how to formulate and frame problems and analyze how others do so. Within the course, now we're going to look at linguistics. Explain the characteristics of global linguistic diversity, including language, typologies, orthographies, that's writing systems, and variations like register and dialect. You'll notice that orthographies is a discipline-specific term and might not be readily recognized by students. And so there's some detailed descriptions to help point the students into what they do, writing systems. That still ties into anthropological methods, it still ties into contemporary social issues, and it still ties into critical thinking and how to frame problems. We're at the course level. Now let's go down to a module, and we're just going to start. This is actually in module 1 of this course. Explain the reason for the distribution of languages by language families around the world currently. And so you can see that we can talk about languages around the world, and then it feeds up into that general education objective. So it's kind of like a nesting doll situation. You have something larger, but it goes down to something more pointed. In terms of figuring out how to find which standards apply to your course, your first step is your department chair. Which standards do we need to meet, and how it is that other people in the department do meet those. Curriculum and instruction committees across the program usually come together to make sure that courses are distinct and support each other, but don't overly overlap, or make sure that there's no big gap anywhere so that the students graduating from the program can meet the objectives. So if you are in a specialized accreditation, talk to your department chair, there'll be accreditation standards. If your course is one of the gen ed courses, there's a general education website on isu.edu. You can search for general education and find that site with all of those objectives. And sometimes you might just have a program goal like here. Sometimes you might have all of the above. So making sure that they all come together and work together is exactly what you need to be doing.
Thank you for participating with us today in this Wednesday webinar. And if you're eager to delve deeper into this topic or to explore other topics that are aligned with our work in the ITRC, we have various support resources and services. First of all, we have our Tiger Tracks knowledge base, which is a how-to library at your fingertips. And we also have a library of videos and recordings that are similar to today's session in our ITRC video library on our YouTube channel. And the Instructional Technology Resource Center supports the development of instructional materials and resources that are accessible to all. So please visit our website for more information about that. And you're always welcome to meet with us at the ITRC. You can email us at itrc@isu.edu or give us a call at 208-282-5880. Or if you want to come and see us in person, we're in the Oboler Library in room B17 on the Pocatello campus. And we also make on-demand appointments on our appointment scheduler. And they can be in person, on the phone, or through Zoom, whichever preference you have there. And watch for other Wednesday webinars to come in Idaho State Today and on the ISU events calendar. And we also have a Wednesday webinar schedule that you can check out. And if you open up your QR code reader, you can go ahead and access these slides there. Next week's Wednesday webinar is titled, "What is a Course Alignment Map?" And it will be on February 7th, starting at 2 p.m. So we invite you to join us for that one as well. Thank you for being with us today.